Subscribe to LearnCab and hit the bell icon to get notified.
And then we will go to the third topic, my dear soldiers. That's the thing here. The third topic of the day, my dear soldiers, is the essay 210, agreeing for the terms of audit engagement. I'll just give you a brief summary of this particular topic, my dear soldiers. So basically, what is this agreeing for the terms of audit engagement? That's the thing. So a brief summary on this particular topic actually here. See, engagement means it is nothing but a work. So what is this topic about? This topic is all about what you can say the audit engagement letter. This is talking about the audit engagement letter. So how do you draft the audit engagement letter? This is highlighting about that actually. Okay. So now we talk about the objective. What are the objective? Basically the objectives here is that to establish the preconditions for an audit, whether preconditions of audit are there. See what happens, I'll tell you. There is a auditor. Now auditor will send audit engagement letter. He will send an audit engagement letter to the client. This letter is sent by the auditor. Auditor will send a audit engagement letter to the client. And once this letter is being sent, my dear soldiers, what happens is that, so you are sending this letter, the auditor is sending the audit engagement letter to the client, and that's the thing here. So audit engagement letter is sent to the client, and that's the thing here. Now once the audit engagement letter is sent to the client, my dear soldiers, what happens is that the client, my dear soldiers, what happens is that he has to agree the step number 2. This is a step number 1. Okay, he has to agree to the, what you can say, the preconditions to audit. Preconditions to audit. Preconditions to audit is simple, nothing but the management responsibility. It is nothing but management responsibility, that management will be responsible to prepare financial statement as per financial reporting framework. Then management will design, implement, maintain internal control. Management will also make an assessment of going concern. So management has to agree to the precondition. Management will provide access to books and records. Management will provide unrestricted access to person within the organization. So preconditions to an audit mean a premise basis on which the auditor will do the audit. And second thing, also the acceptable financial reporting framework, and it highlights more about the management responsibility. So that is what precondition. If the client is not agreeing to the precondition, you should not take up the audit, you should not do the audit. Okay. Now the client will agree to the preconditions of an audit actually, and then, my dear soldiers, once he agrees, now he will send the acceptance letter to the auditor. The step number 3 is acceptance. He is giving his acceptance. Okay. Now this audit engagement letter which is sent by auditor, what does it contain? It contains what this letter contains actually here. It contains the scope and objective of audit. It contains the form of audit report. It contains the responsibility of auditor. It contains the responsibility of management. It contains the applicable financial reporting framework, which is nothing but the format of, it's nothing but the accounting standards, applicable financial reporting framework. So these are the things here: scope and objective of audit, form of audit report, the responsibility of auditor, responsibility of management, and applicable financial reporting framework. Okay. Now next one, confirming that there is a common understanding between the auditor and the management and the TCWG of the terms of audit engagement. So there should be a confirmation, my dear soldier, that there is a common understanding between the auditor and the management and TCWG of the terms of audit. What are the terms and conditions? Scope, what am I going to check? Objective, why I am doing the audit? Okay, all those things are highlighted in the audit engagement letter. I'm just doing a summary revision for you in this particular standards. Okay, now preconditions to an audit, already we have discussed preconditions of an audit. Basically, it's a premise, it's a basis on which the auditor and the management and those charged with governance will agree. Plus, the management is responsible for certain things, means they're responsible to design, implement, maintain internal control, maintain the books of accounts, provide access to books of account, to prepare financial statement as per applicable financial reporting framework. So we had already discussed, if preconditions is not agreeing, you should not take up the audit. Not take up the audit. Then recurring audit. This is one of the favorite question of the examiner. Recurring audit or repetitive audit. Every year, same auditor, same client. Should I send an audit engagement letter? It is not required to send an audit engagement letter each year, but there are certain exceptions. So you should remember the exception. See, first of all, understand the basics. Who is sending the audit engagement letter? Auditor. Whom is sending the letter? He is sending the letter to the client. Why is he sending the letter? To confirm the scope and objective of audit. And when is he sending the letter? Before the commencement of the audit, this letter is being sent. Now, in case of recurring audit, my dear soldiers, when we talk about the recurring audit that it highlights about the when we should send a audit engagement letter, even in case of recurring audit. Suppose, what are the exceptions? Generally, I told you there is no requirement to send an audit engagement letter, but certain situations, what happened, there are certain exceptions where you have to send audit engagement letter even in case of a recurring audit. The significant changes in senior management, significant changes in ownership, then changes in legal and regulatory requirement. Like for example, GST law came in 2017. We had to send a revised audit engagement letter because there was a strong impact of it. Actually, earlier we had because we were serving the client for many years, and then recurring audit, revision in the terms of engagement. You have to send a revised engagement letter. Indication of any misunderstanding in the existing terms of engagement. If there are any misunderstanding, changes in the size and nature of business, changes in the financial reporting framework. So before 2015 there was no Ind AS. After 2015 Ind AS was brought in. So again you have to send a audit engagement letter even if it is a case of a recurring audit. Or there may be changes in the reporting requirement. Yes, earlier it was CARO 16, now it became CARO 2020. So there is a change in the reporting requirement. You have to send the audit engagement letter. And then my dear soldiers, this is another important question they ask actually. Acceptance of a change in the engagement. Acceptance of a change in the engagement. What is the acceptance of the change in the engagement? Let us try to understand that actually here. See what happens. You have started the audit. Okay. So here what has happened, the auditor, he will commence the audit. He commences the audit. He starts the audit actually. Now 2-3 months are over. After 2-3 months, the client says, no. We have to change the terms of engagement. There is a revision of terms of engagement should be. Now, whether it is permissible, there you have to see the reason for such request being made. There may be some misunderstanding between the auditor and the management. That is why they want to change the terms of engagement. There may be a possibility of change in circumstances, say for example COVID, because of some reason actually, or sometimes the management may impose a restriction on the auditor. If the management is imposing any restriction on the auditor, as an auditor you should not accept, you should never accept an engagement which, my dear soldiers, understand that is creating a restriction on you. Actually, that will be limitation of the scope of the work. As an auditor, you can withdraw from the engagement, you can give a modified opinion. So when the client is putting a restriction on you, then in such case you should straight away say, boss, I will not accept any kind of restriction. You can straight away say limitation of the scope, withdraw from the engagement and give a modified opinion. and also communicate with the regulator, those charged with governance, so on. Okay. Now, when the request is being made as an auditor, you have to see that what is the reason behind such request. What is the reason why they are want to make the change in the engagement? Engagement here again, I am repeating, it is nothing but work. They say you don't check all the areas, you check certain areas. So it is more like a change in your work, whether it can be accepted here. So you have to see whether it is appropriate or not appropriate. If there is a reasonable justification, then you can accept the change. For example, we were supposed to do audit of head office and a branch, and during COVID times, the branch was located some 500 kilometers away. When you have a transportation restrictions, logical issues are there, what you will do? You will say, no boss, I cannot check the branch. I can do a desktop audit, but I cannot go and visit the branch that way. So it is appropriate. It is giving a genuine reason. So when the request for change in the engagement is a genuine reason, then you have to consider. That's the thing here. Now, why such request is being made? As I told you, there may be change in circumstances, there may be misunderstanding as to the nature of audit, or there may be restriction on the scope of engagement. That's the thing here. So change in circumstances, misunderstanding on the nature of audit, and restriction on the scope of engagement, and that's the thing here. Then, my dear soldiers, the acceptance of change in the engagement, is it appropriate or not appropriate? So you have to see that whether it is appropriate or not appropriate. That's the thing here. So now in such case, actually here, that's the thing here. So now in such case here, the acceptance of change, my dear soldiers, is it appropriate or not appropriate? So if it is appropriate, that's the thing here. So now there should be reasonable justification to the change in the engagement. Is there a reasonable justification to the change in the engagement? As I told you, COVID is a very reasonable justification. I can't go visit that branch, or that some calamity would have happened actually here. Then audit work comply with the standards on auditing to the applicable changed engagement. So whatever you're changing the terms of engagement, you should comply with the standards on auditing. Report should be issued as per the revised terms of engagement, and the management and auditor should agree and record the new terms of engagement letter or suitable form of written agreement. So that's the thing, that they should agree on a revised term. See, if there is a genuine reason for request, let us accept the genuine reason for the request for such change. Let us accept that change. But if it is not genuine, so suppose say if it is not appropriate, then as an auditor, what we should do? So if it is appropriate means what, my dear soldiers? Yes, there should be a reason, there should be reasonable justification. I should do audit on the revised terms of engagement, but I should comply with the standards on auditing. I should issue the report as per the revised term. There, I should not give reference to the original audit engagement letter, or I should not give reference to any procedure which was originally agreed. I should not give reference to. Makes sense, because now I am revising the audit engagement letter. It makes sense that why should I go and refer to the original audit engagement letter? So I should not be doing that. And then acceptance of change in engagement. Suppose say if it is inappropriate, so suppose it stands to be inappropriate, my dear soldiers, then in such case what happens is that there is no reasonable justification to the change in the engagement. You are not having any reasonable justification for change in the engagement. So, for example, I went and asked the client to give me some details, give me some supportings. He said, no, I cannot give you. You're asking details of April, December, March. I'll give you details only of March. Other details are stored in Godown. It is very far. It is 10 kilometers away. I don't have time. No, logical reasons you should not. In the first case, the COVID case or natural calamity is a very genuine reason for changing the terms of engagement. Here, giving a silly reason, no, not at all acceptable. So if there is no reasonable justification, then auditor should not agree to the revised terms of engagement. It will be treated as a limitation on its scope, because he should perform the engagement as per the original audit engagement letter. In such case, what auditor should do? He should withdraw from the engagement. Withdraw means resign from the audit job. Engagement means work. Withdraw from the engagement, or he should determine his obligation, whether he should communicate the same to management, those charged with governance, to the regulator, whether it is his duty to communicate to those people, that you have to understand. Okay. So why audit engagement letter is written by auditor to the client before the commencement of audit, to avoid any misunderstanding and to ensure that we are clear on scope of audit, objective of audit, and what is applicable financial reporting. With this, my dear soldiers, I conclude my discussion on the topic of the day. These are all summary discussion, my dear soldiers. I have not gone in depth. Try to just give you a sense of it. Okay, fine. Thank you all students. Thank you.
Subscribe to LearnCab and hit the bell icon to get notified.